Okay, example 4 wants us to use our angle relationships to do a proof. So they're giving us some information here. They're saying that AC is parallel to DF. So if we wanted to highlight that so we can see it clear, AC is parallel to DF right here. So those two lines are parallel, right? And these little orange arrows on here, we can add them again here, tell us those lines are parallel. We know that BE and DF are perpendicular. And we also know that angle AEB here, AEB, is congruent to angle CEB. So those two angles there are congruent. So let's begin our proof. So first step is to write the given. Okay, they wrote the first two steps. They're probably going to add this in later. So they wrote their givens first. AC is perpendicular to, AC is parallel to DF. Right? That's the parallel symbol. Okay. And then BE is perpendicular to DF. So they have made a mistake here. This should be BE is perpendicular to DF. That's what's given. So we probably should cross that off and put BE is perpendicular to DF. Okay. All right. If we go to the next step here, it tells us angle BED and BEF are right angles. So they're you're going to use what's given to you. So they're giving us perpendicular lines. So since they're giving us perpendicular lines, we're going to use that. And we know perpendicular lines are defined as two lines that intersect and form right angles. So BE here and DF here, they intersect and form right angles. So angle BEF is a right angle, and angle BED is a right angle. So we have two right angles there. Okay, if we want to fill the other one in here on our diagram, that would be good. So we have two right angles there. Okay. They also, we can say since they're right angles, we know the definition of right angle tells us their angle measures equal 90 degrees. Okay. So since their angle measures equal 90 degrees, let's just see what they put. Okay. Yep. So they said definition of right angle, that those are going to equal 90 degrees. Okay. And then they can do an angle addition postulate here, right? So they can say angle DEA, right? The measure of angle DEA plus the measure of angle AEB is going to equal the measure of angle DEB, and the measure of angle FEC plus the measure of angle CEB is going to equal the measure of angle FEB. So let's see what they have there. Yep, and then they also added the substitution in right away. Okay, so they did our angle addition, right? This angle here plus this one is going to add up to 90, and then this one plus this one is going to add up to 90. So AED plus AEB is 90, and then CEF plus CEB is 90. Those two there are 90. Okay. So we have that they equal 90. We have our equations. Let's see what they put next. Okay. So they put that angle AEB, so that was the other given. They then added in the other given. Again, I would have just put it all in one step right here at the beginning, but that's fine. Okay. And then they're going to use the congruent complements theorem, right? So since we now know that these pair of angles are complementary, right? That was the, and again, there probably should have been another step that said angle AED and AEB are complementary by the definition of complementary. And we should have also said that angle CEF and CEB were complementary by the definition of complementary. So again, the inconsistency really frustrates me here, but okay. So they skipped that step, I guess is okay. And so basically this is telling us right here, we have complementary angles. And since AEB and CEB are congruent, right, that means AED and CEF are going to be complementary with congruent angles. And that's the congruent complements theorem said if you have two angles that are complementary with congruent angles, then those two angles themselves are going to be congruent. So AED is complementary with AEB, CEF is complementary with CEB. Since they're complementary with angles that are congruent, right? These two angles here are congruent. They're congruent with each other. Okay, so that's going to, if we look at our diagram, it's going to tell us AED. So let's erase here. All right, it's going to tell us these two angles here, AED, is congruent to CEF. Okay, and then they're going to use the alternate interior angle theorem, I assume. So we know by the alternate interior angle theorem that if the lines are parallel, and they are, then your alternate interior angles are going to be congruent. So alternate interior angles are congruent. Here, alternate interior angles would be congruent as well. Okay. And then they probably use the transitive property. So let's look and see what they did just to make sure. Right, so yep, alternate interior angle theorem tells us BAE is congruent to AED. Okay, and then BCE, so BCE is congruent to CEF. Okay, yep, and then they use the transitive property. So since BAE is congruent to AED, and AED is congruent to CEF, we know that those two, BAE and CEF, are congruent. But we also know CEF is congruent to BCE, right? And so since BCE and BAE are congruent to CEF, we can say that they're congruent to each other by the transitive property. Okay, and we'll go over that in class as well. But there it is, so you can complete the lesson.